I've been lucky enough to get an early access copy of Grid 2019, so I've been having a good play over the last few days to figure out if it's any good for you guys. Now, I should start by saying that I really love the original Grid game and I've always been really excited for this one. I've been excited because I love racing, but I don't always want to get my wheel out. Sometimes I just want to race casually with the controller. So when Codemasters sent me my copy, I was really excited to play it, as I've not even read or heard too much other than what Codemasters themselves have teased about this game. So let's get into it. When you very first fire up this game, you're shown an intro video, then taken straight into a race. I do quite like this approach, but it would have been nice to have a slightly softer intro to the game, so I could at least adjust my graphics settings, as it forced me to play the first 3 races in 720p on medium settings. This quick start approach also meant that I started with no customization, so my name was player and my difficulty settings were set to a default of medium. This isn't a huge issue initially, but there was actually nothing that prompted me to change any of these settings after the initial races. I had to go into the options myself and update it all to my preferred settings. There was also barely any tutorial to tell me how to play or introduce me to the game itself. In fact, the only thing I noticed was a little helper telling me to use a flashback when I had crashed. I found all this quite off-putting, particularly for a game that's aimed at casual players. On to the initial races themselves and my thoughts on the gameplay. As you can see, this is a good looking game, and while it's not going to set the world on fire, it does look good nonetheless. I should also say that it ran pretty well on my PC with an aging graphics card, so that's a sign it's been quite well optimised for PC, which is good to see. The handling on this game is designed for a casual player, so don't expect a full simulation here. That said, it's not a complete arcade game either, but it is designed to be both accessible and fun to drive for the more experienced player. I did the majority of my testing on a controller, as that's exactly how the majority of players have been playing, and I have to say I found the handling very frustrating. It's exactly what you expect for the most part, up until you get some oversteer or drifting. This happens quite often over bumps or on the power, and I find it very frustrating and near on impossible to catch a slide while still remaining quick. I tried lots of different assist settings before eventually settling on a little bit of traction control and ABS and just struggling on. I found out literally hours later that my issues could be completely fixed by adjusting the controller sensitivity in the settings, but I shouldn't have to do that just to make the game drivable. I'm using a PS4 controller on Steam, so it's hardly a niche setup. For those that are interested, I turned the sensitivity right up to 100 and put the limit linearity on 0. Once these settings were applied, the game came to life and it was suddenly fun to drive on a controller. I just don't think many casual players will even think to go into the settings to adjust this. I did briefly try the game on a steering wheel and it was also good fun, but I think this game is really meant to be played casually on a controller. Although I will be doing some wheel videos soon, so subscribe to see more on that. As for the other difficulty settings, I found them to be mostly what you expect in this sort of game, but there's 2 parts of this that I'd like to see improved. First of all, the AI difficulty. I was able to beat the hardest AI quite consistently even with my controller issues, and as I got more used to the game, the AI became slower and slower effectively as I got better and better, so I would really like to see the AI improved. Their racing I found pretty solid for the most part, but they could often be easily outbraked. If you have a lot of contact with them, then they become your rival, which makes them really aggressive with you to the extent that I even had one ram me into the wall out of nowhere. The other part of the difficulty settings that I'd like to see improved is the damage model. Now I had this set to allow the most damage possible, including terminal failures, but I rarely had any serious issues, despite often crashing into the walls or the AI. Perhaps they could add a simulation mode similar to F1 2019, where the damage is really sensitive for the more experienced player. I really think that would add something. Onto the career mode now, and it's split into 6 different racing categories: Touring, Stock, Tuner, GT, Invitational, and a special Fernando Alonso open wheel series. I do like the way this is laid out, but unfortunately that's where the positives end. This feels like a very rushed game mode, as there's no more depth than you can see here. Apart from the very first intro to the game, there's no real introduction to career mode at all, or any story mode. You just complete each race in turn with no element of story or a greater purpose to what you're doing. So far, most of the events have been simple 2-race championships, although I expect this will expand as you get further down each discipline, but there is just no more depth than that. You do earn credits or money every time you complete an event, but all you can do with these is buy a new car or hire a new teammate, which, by the way, is another part of the game that went completely unintroduced. I was hoping for a bit more depth with the credit system, like being able to upgrade your car or upgrade your team in some way. Unfortunately, all you need them for is to buy new cars, and I've not even been short on credits once yet. Buying cars is actually another element of the game that went unintroduced. It even took me a little minute to realise that you had to press and hold the button in order to buy the car. Overall, career mode has got potential, but needs a lot more story and introduction to make it really feel like a career mode rather than just a series of races. Onto the other content now, and I do like the amount of tracks and cars that are in the game, and I also like the fact that tracks can also be played in reverse. There actually isn't a huge amount of tracks here, but having multiple layouts and allowing each one to be played in reverse makes it feel like there's a lot of layouts to choose from. A little side feature that I also liked is the ability to compare your best lap time against your friends or the rest of the world straight after each race. It's a nice little feature that makes you push on in the races even if you're heading for a dominant win, and I found myself actually checking my times against the rest of the world after every single race. In summary, the base of this game is really solid and has great potential for a casual racing game, but just lacks polish. It lacks so much polish in fact that I'll be checking that a release day patch didn't fix a lot of the issues that I brought up here, and if they do patch it and resolve anything I've mentioned here, I'll be sure to add a pinned comment down below. It's a real shame because they got the basics of this game right. I just feel like they simply ran out of time to add the little features that would make this game great. If they patch the controller issues and add some depth to career mode, then maybe this game will be worth your money, but as things stand right now, I sadly can't recommend that you buy Grid 2019.